And welcome to a lovely webinar we have today with the wonderful people from Dezrez. Hello, Rich. How are you today?
Yeah, good, Si. Thank you. How about you?
Yes, I'm fantastic. Sweltering. No one ever thinks of fat middle-aged men when it's this sweltering temperature, but
no.
Like the whale in the Thames, I need to be rolled back into the ice when it gets hot. We are joined today by two of your fantastic guests. We will start with Lynn first and foremost. How are you, Lynn? Do you want to just give us an introduction where you're from?
Yes, I've been in the estate agency 34 years this year, and I currently am a director and head of a estate agency at PFK in Cumbria.
Lovely part of the world. Fantastic.
Yeah, lovely part of the world.
I need you to say that, otherwise I know I'll get shouted at.
Yeah.
So there we go. And James, you're looking well, better than the last time I saw you.
I was great last time we met, Simon. I just played 9 holes of golf in Birmingham, but today I'm in sunny Yorkshire, just outside Holmfirth. I too have been doing this for more than 30 years, Lynn, 32 years this summer, and I'm the owner of Belong Estate Agents in Holmfirth. So glad to see you all today.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for joining us. It is very much appreciated. And just to be absolutely clear there, James, we were networking. We weren't playing golf. That's the story we stick with. And that's the one that goes down on my expenses to the VAT man. So just to be really clear about this. Guys, we've got a fantastic discussion ahead of us. There's the responsibility back on you to make that magic happen. We're going to be talking about value-based selling and some of the questions here. Rich, do you want to just kick us off with, for those people that many will have heard the phrase, do you want to just give us a bit of background about what you feel value-based selling is about?
Yeah, so I mean, it's obviously highlighting the measurable business values your product or service is actually going to bring to a customer. I think this applies to any industry where I think the reliance on selling on price becomes too much in certain circumstances. And especially in the property industry at the moment, we've been in a position where it's so competitive because it's been so active. The speed of which to go to price as something to try and win business has been, in my opinion, a bit too affluent. Let's just go straight to what the best deal is you can do, or what fee you're going to drop down to. So I'm really passionate about selling on value. I think all the aspects that come off the back of selling on value, customer happiness, good reviews, feedback, etc., longevity. So your retention is obviously high as well. Yeah. There's benefits that come off the back of it as well as selling at the best level. So obviously, we're here today to discuss it. I've brought 2 people who are very experienced on the call. Really happy that they've come on, and they've got a wealth of knowledge.
Let's tap into that then, Rich. Let's get right into this. Okay, so yeah, value-based selling. What more can the industry be doing? So let's kick off straight away with the opening question there. Thanks for teeing us up, Rich, in terms of the overview there. So realistically, you can't really bring any value without knowing your prospects, can you? What I would suggest is, are agents devoting enough time to understand who these people are? And if not, what more could you be doing? And let's kick off with Lynn, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think what we've seen, especially as of late with the pandemic and one thing and another, the market has literally erupted, and therefore agents have relied on all sorts of different things, including apps and one thing and another, to communicate to their client base. But I think it's more important now than ever before that you actually understand and know who your clients are. And the key instinct of that is communication. I can give a real good example of this actually in the last week or so. A client called one of our offices, has been in temporary accommodation for 10 months trying to find a property in the Lake District, never managed to secure one yet. And she alleged that most of the agents weren't even getting back to her, weren't communicating with her. So we spoke through, right, what are your wants and needs? What are you looking for? Addressed some of those because they were slightly unrealistic. Talked about the local area and where she was looking to buy and what actually that afforded within her budget. And then we got on such a good terms that we then understood that client 110% and knew automatically when a new instruction came to market this week that we could contact her. And I think a lot of agents have lost sight of that. Not all of them, but some of them. And you can't, your customer is your number one priority. Buyer, seller, renter, tenant, whoever it is, they're your number one priority, and communication is key.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really good advice there. The real solids, the real essentials of selling is what it's about, isn't it? There, and forgetting that, because I think we all know, look, a rising market like we've had in the last year covers a lot of poor agents, doesn't it? A lot of shoddy skills and everything else there. And whilst you can get away with it in this kind of marketplace, you won't be doing the best job for your client without understanding them to the best of your abilities.
No, you've got to know who your client base is. You've got to know what their journey is and what their wants and desires and needs are. And you've got to communicate with them if you can't bespoke a product to that want and need, and what you can do in offering an alternative. And it's all about that relationship, and it's still so important. You know, there's a lot of things you can do within a estate agency now that are fantastic apps and software, and you know, it's coming at us 24/7 all the time. Try this, try that, try the other. But to me, hopefully James backs me up on this, the key is communication and understanding your own clients, their wants, their needs, and their journey, and addressing that.
James, are you going to make this like an episode of Question Time and disagree with her, or are you going to?
Well, probably a little bit of a twist on it, really, in terms of knowing your client and what they want is absolutely vital, obviously. And I think having run sausage machine estate agencies before the one I run now, I was more interested in delivering my speech, telling people what I could do for them, and then moving on to the next one. I once had a guy with me who was from college for a week, and he said, "It's been brilliant this week, James." He said, "But just to give you some feedback," and he was only about 19, he said, "You've said exactly the same thing to every person that I've accompanied you to see this week." And I think there lies a difference between sausage machine estate agents and those that really do want to deliver a concierge level of service. So I think there's room for both. And I think I agree with Richard that, you know, there's a lot of noise out there at the moment. Actually, in the background, my neighbours just started cutting the grass, so I do apologise about that. But it has been so easy this last 12 months just to be a lister rather than a service provider. But actually, the better fees have come from the people who you've engaged with, the people who you've tried to create a journey with, get to know them. And it sounds, you mentioned Chris Watkin in our preamble before we came on air, Simon, but Chris talks about sharing other estate agents' listings if it helps your client or helps a prospective client. Yeah. And actually, would you believe we worked quite a bit on that, and we won business from people who we've been actively pushing other agents' properties to. I'm going
to expose Chris for the sham that he is now. Here it is. He's laying down the page. He stole that from Josh Fegan.
Did he really?
I was actually, just as you were saying it, and yeah, Josh used to talk about that in the same way. And of course, they probably both come at this from different angles uniquely. And I love that idea, weaponized, because it's just about knowledge. It's about understanding the local marketplace. It is there. You're not doing anything deceptive or anything anything like that. It's just giving the feedback that you know you've got your finger on the pulse, haven't you? And dare I say, with a name like yours, James, there with Belong, obviously there, that's showing that empathy, that understanding, isn't it? Right in the title. The other thing is, and I would say this is, somebody is missing a massive trick by not calling their agency the Sausage Factory. Ron Steele, name on the tin. That's absolutely, I'm going to go out painting that. Sausage.com. No, actually, no, I'm going into a whole thing. So I think that's fascinating. That is. And what do you, I mean, just from your own point of view, James, obviously you much prefer this new mode of James Mark 2.0 here, the one where you're really getting in touch with your agents. That just from a personal point of view, there's much more satisfaction when you do empathize and spend the time to get to your agent's needs, isn't it?
Well, in many respects, being part of the community, we call the business Belong because we wanted it to belong to the community. Yep. The other day, I was walking to my car. I got stopped by 4 different past clients, either buyers or sellers, to ask how I was, how was the market, how are things. 20 years ago, I'd have run past them, not recognised them, not spent 2 seconds talking to them. And so, yeah, spending time building relationships is what we've done this last 5 years, rather than just running from one job to another. And I think the same, guys, because we're going to move on to talking about prop tech, the same applies to prop tech as well, and suppliers to the industry. The people I've got
James, I'm going to have to mend some bridges with Mr. Watkins now, because obviously of that previous expose. And you were, unless I got this wrong, I remember you were sat on his the Watkins couch again.
I've lost a stone since then, Simon.
Look, it wasn't for me to say, because I come at this from a level of bitterness. But you were talking very eloquently about your slight suspicion over technology, and especially prop tech. Do you want to talk to us though about what you feel? What place do you feel that prop tech does play in all this? How can prop tech, assist not only agents but critically, of course, the clients that you're serving at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, adding value through prop tech's obviously it's the focus of what people like Richard are doing. And a good friend of mine, we all know him, called Mike Smithson from the Property Jungle. So I'm going to pinch what he says to me. He says that a lot of prop tech is a solution looking for a problem, and I get that. And also, one of the things we talked about last week, Mike and I, was because he gets a lot of new ideas across his desk, and he confides in me with some of them. That the prima facie task of prop tech, either for the agent or for the client, is to save time. Yes. Adding value is not just about adding income, but saving time, actually saving money. Sometimes there's too many sweets in the sweetie shop, and you just go and you layer in video, you layer in live streaming, you layer in 3D tours. We use some or all of that, but you don't necessarily need to apply that to every client. And again, as a young valuer, I would go out and say, look, we're brilliant. We do sticky photographs. We're the first one to do internal photographs in our area. Mm-hmm. And we just shout about what we did, even though we didn't understand whether the client wanted it. So it's the same for the vendor or buyer journey as it is for the agent prop tech supplier journey, I think.
And what do you think about the increased use of things like video and virtual reality tours? They have their place to play.
Well, we were one of the first to do the 3D tours in the country. Again, because Mike, who I mentioned before, he got the national supplier agreement for Immerviewer. So I said, yeah, I want it. And it's actually crushed before the last 12 months where you could sell snow to the Eskimos this last 12 months, couldn't you, in the property world? But we've compressed the number of viewings to sale ratio. And so essentially, it was doing us a world of good long before the pandemic came along. So I truly believe in things that save clients time, because that's adding value to them, really.
And that's ultimately it, isn't it, James? Really, you can't do this for vanity or just because you're a big fan of tech per se. You need to be able to look at those measurable KPIs and see the improvements there. And as you said, technology at its core promise is about saving you time and energy to help you do the more dollar productive things, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you save time, you usually save money at the same time, don't you? So
always nice to see. So, Lynn, are you pro prop tech, or are you going to make this awkward and say you're suspicious of the 650 things I flog on our platform?
Yeah, no, I am pro prop tech. I think you have to be. I think everything's changing. Whatever business that you're in nowadays, and you have to do that, and you have to adapt and be able to work with your customer base, because customers are looking to contact you in various different mediums, so you have to be able to look at it. The only thing I'm not suspicious of it, but sometimes suspicious of the volume of emails you get. continuous. But I think we're ever evolving now. Estate agency has changed dramatically. In 2015, you might not remember, Simon, but we worked together, and I was at a company at the time that used an app for the first time to work remotely in a very bad area. For Wi-Fi, one thing and another.
Talking about 5G was a thing that you would have laughed at my comments off, wouldn't you? Really?
So I'm very much up for prop tech and different things, and virtual viewings especially. Had exactly the same experience as James, in that It's saved some clients' time on both sides of the equation. And then more often than not, when you do the physical viewing, you're more likely to get a serious offer, etc. Yeah. So yes, I'm up for it. I just think there's too much getting thrown at us at the moment. And my ideal scenario, and maybe it's because I'm older, but would be that you have one thing that covers all these different things and modifies and changes as time does. And actually, to be fair to Rich, that's what we're experiencing at the moment with Resi.
That was seamlessly, and that was
ace. How good was that?
I've got to be honest. There's always need for improvement.
I think
the check's in the post, is it, Richard?
Yeah, it is.
Did you see him messaging there? Say this. No.
Yeah.
Lynn, that's a really good point, and I'll tell you why on a couple of levels. First of all, there have been companies in the past that have tried to, and I suppose we can name them, people like the Vibra group of companies, where they were trying to build one system essentially to rule them all, weren't they? They were layering in different functionality. And as you'll know these days, these CRM packages by definition have so much to do that it slightly changed the focus. But what I have loved is that people like Rich and the lads at Dezrez have addressed this issue, that there is just a huge amount of really useful tech out there. They're not going to do it all or replicate it themselves. So very much like Apple do with their apps, they are providing the best possible way of integrating easily onto the platform. Rich, is that am I right in thinking that that's your approach these days, and that's how you're trying
without a doubt
for agents?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, if I go back a step slightly, the whole purpose is to allow estate agents to do their job. So sell, let, service their clients as quickly and efficiently as possible. So the tech that is there should benefit them, so they can focus on the main part of the job. So both Lynn and James have touched on the time saving, the saving on cost. So is there something that an estate agent is doing at the moment that is costing them X amount that we can possibly use Resi or Premium or even Enterprise to accommodate that and save them that money? We've done that with customers. One in particular, he was spending nearly £500 a month on watermarks.
Yeah.
Our Premium product, we were able to write a workflow specifically for that. That guy is now saving £500 a month just on not having to do his own watermarks with another company.
Essentially, he's getting Resi for free with a bit of left over at the end of the month. Just for
there you go. Absolutely. So, but in terms of the tech, I do agree. There is so much out there at the moment. There are so many new startups, but it's how you fit. It's how you place yourself within that. Now, Dezrez has been around 20 years. It's one of the longest serving companies within the industry from a CRM perspective. But we very much behave like a startup still, and integrating with partners is really key. We've got a huge amount of those that we work with, but it doesn't matter unless it's servicing our customers in the right way, and in turn their clients. So it's being able to provide the tools for our customers like Lynn and James, where they don't have to worry to an extent as well.
That's 20 years. Justin doesn't look a day over 30, so that he'll have to tell us what the secret to his regime is.
Absolutely.
Probably owning a really successful prop tech company.
Could well be, yeah, absolutely.
And I think one of the in fact, and you're quite right there. I don't envy people like Lynn and James. Having to keep in touch with what is the exciting, not just tech, but that's the majority of it, but suppliers that are out there. I've spoken about thank God they do, to be honest, because otherwise Kerfuffle wouldn't exist. So keep inventing useless products, guys, and we'll we've got a place to pay. But I think there's the problem isn't it, is that it does lead to what I call ostrich syndrome in agents, in that you can't, like Lynn said, read all those emails promising these solutions and hope to stay on board. But what happens then is you actually put your head in the sand a little bit and just say, I haven't got the bandwidth for this, basically. There, the problem with that is you are going to miss out on some really good innovations, aren't you, that can help your business.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've got to keep your eyes open, and you've got to keep looking at these new things that come to pass. But yeah, it's like James said before. You know, they're really good things. And if they work for you and your customer, then you should employ them and bring them in and modernise the service so that the client's getting the best that they can get.
Do you think about that when you are choosing solutions, Lynn? Do you think how is this going to, first and foremost, is that what your approach? How is this going to actually benefit the clients?
Yeah, well, my customer base, because I covered 6 geographical areas, and one of my busiest areas is obviously the Lake District, and it's sometimes a different demographic, the customer. So it can be completely different to another city centre office like Carlisle.
Yep.
The customers can be slightly different, and it's making sure that whatever we're adding to our systems or adapting to or providing actually covers all the different bases for the different type of customer. Yep. You know, in the format as well, and executed and sent to them by the medium that they want to receive it in. So yeah, we have to look at it like that, and yeah, we spend a lot of time on it. And actually, I would say, and I say this has probably happened hopefully to most estate agency businesses, it's been a big wake up call for a lot of us. We had to turn over overnight. Some people did have to turn their business over. James was ahead of the game, obviously, and we were already doing virtual tours and things as well. But we've had to also analyse, and we're looking more so now at a strategy for the next 6 to 12 months or 24 months. What's that going to look like? What are we bringing next? What do we do next? You know, the concierge service, one thing and another. There's so many different things. So you still got to adapt and change. Yeah.
Very, very sensible approach there. I think that's a really reasoned, sort of assertion of where we are. We're getting a few comments here, and there's another big fan here from generic Facebook user, James. You haven't been typing away there, have you? But followed Belong for a while. Absolutely love the concept and the quality of the work they are putting out. Awesome work, James. We will try and find out who that is.
My wife is not on Facebook, Simon. I promise.
Okay. Another one there. Speaker volume suddenly reduced. Thanks, Mr. Whale. Nearly blew my windows out. Apologies. I do try to do my Good Morning Vietnam style welcome in a Brummie accent. And then we have Mr. Price himself, all hoodied up there. Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts, Lynn and James. Great to hear your experiences and insights. We're proud to be supporting your great businesses. So wonderful to hear that. Now I'm going to ask you, Rich, to pay back a bit of the love actually here. So obviously agents are sometimes paid substantial fees, obviously for selling houses. What real value do you think agents add to the home moving process for sellers and buyers? This is you stepping up to the plate now and saying why you believe these people are so wonderful.
Well, I always like going off my own experience, and the value comes from their own experience and their knowledge of the area, of the market, and their customers. I go back to what you asked originally with knowing your audience and knowing your prospects. I think the best estate agents that I've ever engaged with really know their market and they know their audience to the stage where when I last moved house, they knew my work experience. They'd gone and looked at my social media. They had really...
Oh my God, they don't do that, do they?
They've really gone to town. And I think that is an element which possibly is still missing, even though that was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
That showed real gravitas that they wanted to find out about me. Speed of response as well. I mean, I think the quickest ones that reply, I don't believe this garbage in that, well, what else are they doing if they can reply that quickly? The first one who replies is always the one that I think, well, fair play. They are absolutely on the ball with this, but then they have a conversation. If you pitch your product straight away, you product dump, as I always call it, and you thrust it upon them. James has touched upon that already in terms of the pitch. People switch off, or if it's, back to the sausage factory days again, there's a place for that because it's just churning numbers. We're in a different world now. It's understanding. And do you know what? I'll go one step further. I think it's educating.
Yeah.
It's some people are petrified of moving house. It's educating them on, I mean, you could go even further and say, be a doctor on property. they come to you with a pain. They come to you with a fear. What are those fears? How can we provide a solution that's going to fix that? That applies to any industry, but from an estate agent perspective, tell them about the area, tell them about what you know, what your experience is, show them your testimonials, even go on again one step further and get one of your old customers on the phone with your prospect and say, look, I've showed you the testimonial. Do you want to speak with them?
Yeah, it's nice.
It's really pushing the service, and that in turn will prove value. But obviously, James has touched upon the larger fees. That the larger fees come from the extensive relationship that you've built with a customer, and that applies to us as well as a business. We've thrived on that. Some of the deals we've done, we've really gone to town and been extensive with that. And if someone starts mentioning price, and well, this company is offering this, what are you going to do? I would say, well, what are you actually getting for your service? Tell me more. You actually always go to a fact find perspective again, rather than just say, well, okay, well, let me have a look and I'll go and have a word with my boss and see what I can do. Go back to the fact find, because you must have missed something. So, these are all things that, if I was sat as an estate agent, I'd be incorporating the same things I do within Dezrez. And a lot of that comes from experience, sharing best practice.
I think one of the things that I haven't seen a study that's backed it up in the UK there, but I know there was one of the big corporates in Australia. They were able to demonstrate that return clients, previous clients coming back, were actually paying an extra 15% in terms of they had been happy on the basis, obviously, that they must have been happy to return back to the agency itself. Actually, a lot of the time you feel like the assumption is you have to give them a discount to do it. The stats didn't back that up. They'd come back to you because they were happy there, and perhaps they didn't haggle quite as much on the fee because actually they were quite comfortable with the service they were going to get. And I think that's a really interesting angle, because it makes perfect sense to me that if you are able to do it, I think you'll know yourselves. There's hello again from the Spectre family. They made the point that just over 10% of buyers actually return to the agencies that they actually bought through, and that's not the best experience in the world, is it? When they themselves go on to sell the next time, 1 in 10 is not a great endorsement. Now we all know there's a long period of time between that. But I think that those prop tech tools and systems like Dezrez that enable you to stay in contact, after the initial sale or purchase has been done, it can only help keep your brand front and center, can't it? And ensure that they stand a better chance of coming back to you than if wasn't the case. So let me just ask you, James, in terms of that point there, where do you think now, what do you feel is the real value that agents are adding to the home moving process?
Well, I think the agents that behave like a concierge in a 5-star hotel are the ones that really add value. So rather than the client calling in, they'll call around for something. The client doesn't have to do anything. So, for example, just on moving day, when you deal with a rented property, Lynn, usually, I'm not saying your company, but usually an agent would meet the tenant at the property and move them in. They'd collect the keys from the landlord, and they'll get maybe a fee of 500 quid plus a management fee on a moving in on a monthly basis. When the agent is earning £5,000, they usually expect the client to drop the keys off at the office, and then the buyer to rush round and meet the agent at the agent's office to collect the keys. Just something simple like that moving day experience can be improved so much by the agent taking time and a little bit of effort to meet the vendor when they're moving out to collect the key, maybe the day before, see how the boiler works, see where the meters are, then meet the buyer the following day and say, look, this is how it all works, guys. I'll move you in. It'll only take 2 seconds. I'll meet you at the house. Something like that can be memorable, and that might actually, in 3, 4, 5 years' time, be the difference between just what you touched on, Simon, the client who bought the house coming back to the agent to sell it for them next time they move. That's something memorable. Some agents give out little boxes of tea and coffee, moving day gifts, if you like. But they do that primarily to get some sort of social media PR out of it, I think, rather than actually adding value to the moving day process for the buyer or seller.
And it's got to be Yorkshire tea, obviously, as we said.
Yorkshire tea, yeah, and Yorkshire bitter as well for whoever drinks it. But simply being a concierge, providing a 5-star service, because actually, not everybody buys on price. We know it's one of the oldest sayings in sales is that, but the reality is the moving experience could be so much better for everybody, and I think also that experience. We've not got to forget the conveyancing process in all of this. I think the revolution in estate agency that's coming down the line isn't in estate agency prop tech, it's in conveyancing. And as soon as the conveyancing world gets itself sorted out, estate agency is going to have to look very, very different to what it does now. So if they can start organising themselves better now from a service perspective, then the threat of the conveyancer might not be quite as bad. But I actually think there's something coming down the line that we don't yet know about, which is going to revolutionise what we do.
Blockchain. I keep hearing blockchain. I still don't know
it's the meteor that killed the dinosaurs, Simon. But we can't see it coming just yet.
Watch the space. Watch the space.
And I also think the other thing. So there's conveyancing for me. We could help the client add value there, but I think prop tech can add value to agencies by helping to build those long-term relationships, and helping us to build market share as well. We seem to be all over the place with different suppliers at the moment. Once my CRM can automatically contact everybody in a neighbourhood after I've sold a house at the click of a button without me having to go onto another platform, I'll be happy. Because just too much of it all at the moment.
You're talking about jetpacks again, James. Let's stay grounded for a moment. I'll tell you what I do like, James, is I like your point about the concierge, and I'll tell you why. It's not just that you're competing with the experience that you're getting with other estate agents. More and more today, you are getting compared to the concierges in other vertical industries, isn't it? As much as anything, and people don't understand why when they can see on their phone when the pizza or I always have to take it back to food, or your Uber is going to turn up, why the value was late, or why they don't have confirmation on viewings in an effective fashion. Why can't they gain access to their to their dashboard to see feedback on viewings and the conveyancing? All of these things are across the board in other industries, and they are there in different elements. But I think we've still got a long way to go, haven't we, into making that a consistent story for the average property client.
Yeah,
I'd say so. Sorry, Lynn, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go on, you carry on.
No, I was just going to say, it is required a more consistent approach. It's like James said, that you're not got a lot of pies that you've got to look at and put in the oven, rather than getting one system, multiply, using that for what you need. And also, like you say, Simon, making sure that customer that wants that type of service can get that type of service. Because everybody is different, aren't they? And each customer area is different, as we've said before. And it's being able to have those differences in your software and what you offer as your services to make sure that the client journey is as smooth as possible.
Spot on, and that's the key point for me. Systems like Resi and some of those other prop techs we're talking about here is days gone by, even at the same agency, because it was all about the individual, you could have a fantastic experience, or you could have a less, if it was a new person or whatever else there. What technology should do for an agency is give a level of consistency in terms of communication and service, everything else there, so that it does even it out. Of course, the person is, we hope that this is always the case. The person is always going to be pivotal, and there will be a level of difference there, but at least it won't be quite as marked as it might be otherwise.
I'd agree with that. We've just taken on Resi Anytime to allow us to do that. We've always handed out or left a little postcard after every viewing to let the client know when they got home from work, how the viewing went. But now we can do it virtually with Resi Anytime. It's just an extra step. We'll still leave the card because it's a personal touch, but to build that dashboard of diaries or feedback from diary appointments for the client, I think is really important too. So Resi Anytime allows us to do that.
I think, well, I don't know if you've looked at the stats on this, but Rich will know it better. But I was always amazed in my previous existence where the amount of, and it's totally logical, isn't it? Is, the last thing that somebody wants to do when they've come home from a hard day at work is jump straight onto the blower and speak to the agent. They have their tea, sat in front of the TV, they're on the iPad, and that's when they do. And now most businesses don't operate those extended hours. I couldn't believe the level of access that systems like Anytime, were getting throughout the, just outside of the normal office hours.
And this isn't taking away the personal touch, which I believe is incredibly essential still. Yes. This is allowing more of the personal touch if needs be. You're not having to spend time. Yes, you've got 3 appointments today. Here's where they are. This is what time they're coming, etc., etc. They can go in and see that for themselves, so that when you do engage, it's a proper interaction.
It's enhancing it. Yeah,
exactly. You're absolutely spot on. And again, that emphasises the point of whenever you interact with your customer or your prospect, whoever it is, you make sure there's value included in it, rather than I'm just catching up to see how you're getting on. Well,
again, Josh Fegan, not Chris Watkins. He always made the point: have a very clear, defined reason why you're going to be, what you're going to be communicating. What's the purpose of the call that you want to get across? Because actually, whilst you might think it's being quite nice staying in contact, everyone's so busy these days is that you're going to, and people actually are, and I'm the worst for this, by the way, is these have actually stopped being phones, haven't they, to a large degree? They do so much. They've stopped doing their core activity. And it doesn't take too many of those calls that, I just wanted to drop for them to say, I'm not answering that. Whereas if you're letting them know, short, sharp, I'm just letting you know about, you've obviously seen the feedback on that viewing. They obviously spoke about it wasn't right for them because of the price. You have a conversation that's much more constructive then, can't you?
Well, 28 years ago when I was 19, I'm 28 next week, so I'm 48 next week. So 29 years ago, I worked with a woman who, a really intuitive estate agent. She said that the first point of every vendor contact call was to check that the sign was still up. So you just ring and say, "Hi, Mr. Whale, just ringing to see your sign's still up." If you ask them nothing else, at least you got a response. So
I love it. That's great feedback. We have the wonderful Kaylee here. So once you use Resi Anytime, you'll wonder how you ever work without it. There's a shout out. I like somebody who puts their product front and forward like that. It's a game changer, offering a 24/7 client portal, working around the clock for your agency. Check it out now. And I won't try and do the full URL, but I'll leave it up there for people who want to have a look. I am massively in favor of these portals, landlord logins, vendor logins, whatever else there. I just think this it used to be genuine when we first started selling them that we got a lot of kind of security objections. Oh no, I don't like the idea of that. Well, 90% of us don't go into a bank anymore, do we? And if we're able to keep our banking information happily here, this has to be done. And it's always frustrated me a little bit that the uptake of systems like this has been quite so slow, because I just don't think you realise how useful tools like that can be, especially in the lettings world. We're all looking to move people away from let only or rent collect and get them fully managed. Well, letting them know that they have full access to the tools like this, where they can access this at any time, 24/7 for a slightly uplifted fee and have them doing everything, has got to be the way that the customers' conversations go in the future. So thank you for that.
Sorry, I was just going to finish off on Resi Anytime from my point of view. We've actually rebranded it and we call it Belong Anytime. So we've actually made a campaign out of it. We're only just starting. We only signed up a couple of months ago, didn't we? Yeah. But we've spent, like anybody, 4 or 5 weeks anxiously trawling through the features to see which ones we're going to allow the clients have access to, and eventually we've come down to the point of allowing them access to pretty much everything.
You don't have free form notes turned on, do you? Because I'll tell you a few choice. We learned the hard way about that.
What?
We used to have viewings feedback when we first did it as a total free form notes field, and all I'll say is there were a couple of things that made us change
Oh
that.
goodness, no, you can't do that at all. It's all it all has to be approved by the estate agent. So
There you go.
Oh no, it can't be. It's not the viewers' feedback. It's the estate agent's feedback, isn't it? I think.
yeah.
Good stuff. Well, I'd love to. Let's talk about that just in a bit more detail and just evolve the kind of anytime prop tech conversation. So, if agents do have the time to use these prop tech tools properly, and obviously they're only going to keep on coming. Do you think? I know this is a bit biased, but do you think much of it really does add value? And Lynn, maybe you could just kick us off with that.
Yes, I think it does add value in the right context, and if it fits for your business, as in booking appointments, as in out of hours contact, and one thing and another. We actually monitored last year through our valuation requests the response time immediately out of operating hours, making sure it was quick and fast, and what that then gave us on the uptake for listings, and it significantly increased, obviously. And yes, so things, yes, they are viable, they are workable. It's just, as I said before, maybe you don't need absolutely everything.
Yeah. Like small portions, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Buy small portions, don't go for all you can eat straight off, because you end up
I think the way estate agents have evolved over the years as well. God, I'm going back a few years now, but in the older days, every single person employed was an estate agent doing a particular job. Now there are people just booking valuations because of the systems in play and how quick they can do it. Again, it echoes what Lynn just said in terms of efficiency. And being able to respond quick and being able to book the appointments quick and follow up and do your SMS feedback, etc., etc. The way, and I really do believe it's going to go one step further. So James is right. There's something on the horizon, without a doubt, that's going to take all of this to the next level. I really do believe it. We've got plans our end, which I can't share today. But
they will be exclusively on Kerfuffle when they do come out.
I'm sure they will, yeah. But it's really, really exciting, and we believe it's going to be a bit of a game changer. So
I think Rich, it feels to me, and I know this is probably, but it feels to me we are right at the cusp of almost a golden age here, where in the past it has been just so difficult to get the integrations that we're needing, but with things like Zapier, open APIs, with everybody thinking at least in the same place now, that integration, because it wasn't so long ago that people, there were still people saying, well, we want to have our own walled garden, but it does seem that actually agents can find, it's not happening quick enough for them, but there's a really bright horizon not too far away, isn't there, in terms of tying together their tech stack in a proper fashion.
I think it's accelerated hugely. I mean, COVID has had a big influence on that because of the way we're all having to operate. But I think it's massively accelerated this year. And the number of prop tech companies that have started in the last 12 months is testament to that. Some of them do very similar things to others. There's obviously some really, really standout ones that are really providing a fantastic service.
Yeah.
And our job is not just to look at all options to benefit our clients, but listen to our clients at the same time.
I'm going to interrupt, Richard. I'm going to interrupt you because I've got an opinion about all of this. I think that yes, there's been lots of startups, but I also think as the market has heated up to the degree that it has, a lot of agents have dropped the things they started to do at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, true.
They've stopped doing videos. They've stopped doing 3D tours. They were, if you like, convenient for a while for many. I do think that others have picked them up, but I do think some of the older-fashioned companies that maybe didn't believe in the next generation, they've actually reverted to type and stopped using some of these technologies that they picked up with just something simple as video things. The houses are selling so quickly. Let's just take 20 photographs and stick them on Rightmove. A lot of companies have reverted to type. So I think that's fascinating. Agent to influence that.
I agree. I absolutely agree, James.
I think that stat is really interesting, isn't it? As you said, it didn't lead to that pivot of the business that, seeing the advantage of this going all the way forwards famously they had to do it to start off with, but then it kind of became, well, actually we don't need this to do it anymore, and falls back. What will be fascinating as the market comes off the boil is whether people do actually say, well, we need to pick up, we need to be challenging, because actually some of those other agents down the high street are ostensibly being more productive and efficient by us on that basis.
Yeah, and it's possibly people. It's going to sound ageist, really. I say I'm nearly 50, but the agents who are at the forefront of this are those in the 20s and early 30s. These are the guys that should be adopting the new tech or will be adopting it, much to the
demographic.
Sorry,
my demographic you're talking about, yeah.
And of course.
James, you obviously, and I love that you're plain speaking. Obviously, there. What percentage do you? It's an unfair question. What percentage?
Oh God, who knows? Who knows? I'll make something up. I don't know. What is it? Something like 80% of our statistics are made up on the spot. So we have a guess.
Well, I suppose what I was going to say is, if we're talking about it being, slightly gimmicky, what percentage do you just as a gut feel do you feel is gimmicky, and what percentage actually has value?
Prop tech.
Yeah.
Everything I use adds value to our journey and our client's journey. Everything. Yeah. I don't have anything that is slack. I run a very tight budget. I don't believe in having prop tech for the vanity purpose or just for having it to say I've got it. I think if you're going to run a business which is efficient, you can't afford to have things that don't add or solutions that are not important for your business. And I would say that probably I don't know. Talking to Mike, my property jungle guru, I would say 3/4 of what we talk about fails in its first 12 months.
That's really interesting.
I would say.
What about yourself? Are you able to give a guesstimate on that? What would you estimate?
A stat on that, it is difficult. I've never measured it. I would guesstimate it's probably at least 50 to 60%.
I'll pretend it's 73%. That's a Kerfuffle official stat.
You're going to.
We've done all the research, but no, it's just what I love there is because there is that perception, isn't there? There's some businesses start in an ivory tower, and it's because they don't have understanding of the property market per se. They may be great techies, and as Mike Smith quite rightly says, inventing things that are solving no issue. Other companies build themselves into an ivory tower and slowly move away as they get more successful there. I think that, again, not to just home this golden age, though, what I think is really interesting is loads of these packages out there that are now agents are almost liberating themselves. People are Mike Nettleton, Christian Byfield. You've got Kai over at Keaton's, who's done area. Lots of different agents now are actually coming at this, and of course, there's no minimum viable product there, is there? Because they know what the problem is 100%. And actually, at no time has it been easier to actually create tech, although it's still not easy per se. But it's easier to get it out of the labs, as it were, than is done previously. So I think that, again, does beckon that we've got a special sort of, obviously, new type of tech company that's going to actually deliver much sooner than it ordinarily would do.
I think, Simon, though, as well, touching on that point, as great as everything we're talking about is, listening to those top influencers in your industry and not being afraid to really take on board what they're doing and even improve it. I've found as in the last 20 years, there's a lot of estate agents out there who very much cocoon themselves on how they believe they should be operating and aren't actually open to suggestions. Those that are,
it's got to be the biggest barrier, hasn't it, Rich? That kind of, well, we've never done it like that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That intransigence is the hardest point about to get people over.
I think so. And again, I go back to the last 12 months. I think the market presence and the sharing of best practice and these top influencers, as you call them, it's well worth listening to them. It really is. No one is the finished article. Anyone who says they are is talking garbage. You've got to learn. Everyone's in a continuous learning cycle, and sharing best practice is essential, in my opinion.
Every day is a school day.
Sure is, Lynn.
Well, as the number 3 most influential person on the Simon Bradbury list, I'm not going to disagree with you, Rich. So until that's challenged in a court of law, I'm going to keep ramming it home. Anyway, right, next up, we've spoken about kind of the conveyancing side of things, and clearly moving house is one of the most stressful things you can do in life. We spoke about kind of, you know, this big one over the horizon coming, which we can't put our hands on apart from that blockchainy style thing. But what more can be done to eliminate buyers' fears, do you think, at the moment, without future solutions? Lynn, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when we had the 30th of June stamp duty deadline, as we all know, there was a lot of activity prior to that, and a lot of things going on, and a lot of anxious sellers and buyers. We've always within PFK had a sales progression team and sales progression specialists, and we actually found that helped us more than ever during that transition period at the start of the pandemic. Yeah, we literally were hand-holding, and solicitors were working exceptionally hard and sometimes not contactable or working ridiculous hours out of business hours as well. But we found by doing that and hand-holding and keeping in touch with everybody, it was reassuring, because sometimes agents are a little bit set in the laurels, like James said, and they automatically assume because someone has moved before, they know exactly what the process is.
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes you just have to handhold and help them along that process to make sure they get to the next step. And if there is a problem along the way, challenge the problem, look at the problem, understand the problem. One of the things that really set me back last year was I was aghast at how many agents didn't even know their chains. They didn't know their chains. They didn't know their funding. They established a sale and they hadn't done any check or any, so that their seller can make an informed. Yeah, and that to me was more important than ever before. And we found by doing that, we actually managed, we measured the first 3 months of this year to see how many sales we'd agreed actually got through to exchange, and it was 97%, wow, which I'm exceptionally proud of.
That's really good.
And it was down to that and that alone. And again, it was whilst we had apps, whilst we had conveyancing logins for clients to look at, it was all about the process and also making sure if it looked like that deadline wasn't going to be reached, we were communicating it to everybody, and sometimes even other agents, so that everybody knew that was unreasonable because of this, or this. So yeah, I think for buyers and sellers still, no matter how much experience they've got, you still need to hold hands quite a bit with that. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful. I'm saying that because a multitude of things can happen, and it's getting them to the end process, which is what they want.
I think it's the reality, Lynn, isn't it? I mean, if you think about exactly what you're saying there, the only real people outside of agents, conveyancers on one side of the equation who have genuine kind of experience, expertise, are investors. If you are, okay, maybe a tenant, you've got a little bit more understanding. But if you're on the home selling, home buying process, if it's every 7 or 8 years, which was the often trotted out statistic, but I believe is now 17, 18 years, how can you possibly have any familiarity with it? And see, even the thing, hearing people talk about change, I know if you'll be sat at a dinner table, you'll get a load of quizzical looks around that, well, what the hell's a chain or something like that? So it's important, isn't it, to have that kind of question yourself again and not fall into acronyms or whatever else it is and all the usual stuff. This just does need to be communicated and handheld effectively.
It's this part of the process, Simon, that adds value to the client.
Yeah.
We probably talked, if you go back 25 years, you would say that the marketing of the house was 75% and the conveyancing was 25% the agent's responsibility. I think that's reversed now. I think that the post-transaction period after you've agreed the sale is now 75% of the job. And that's one of my biggest worries, is that, if the conveyancing world does get itself sorted out, it kind of dilutes the added value that an agent will bring to the process, because if you can do the conveyancing in 3 weeks, and remove a lot of the anxiety through AI or prop tech, whatever it might be, that's the next revolution, then agents really going to have to reinvent themselves to combat that.
So was that an official quote? You're really pleased if conveyancers keep insisting on using faxes so that you can add the value.
If we can keep the balance as it is now until I retire, that will be all right.
We'll see what we can do, James. I will make that. If not, Jim will fix it. Even though actually, I'm not going down that.
Oh, no, don't mention him.
I've got this is a live one as well. I forgot. Okay. I think what I love about that, James, is though when the first iteration, the first wave of online agents happened, they were caught out for quite a period of time, weren't they, in terms of being able to defend and explain to the public what their job was. I never had a problem with the famous, the purple bricks of the world, because actually what I think it really did do is get agents to think about that demonstrably. Where is the value in there? Peter Knight talks about making the invisible visible, doesn't he? And you've all got so much better at communicating that now back to the audience as to, look, you can go cheap and cheerful if you want to, but what we're about is delivering this.
Absolutely.
And that works, I think, 10 times over. Okay, good stuff. So, Rich, have you got any opinion on that, just in terms of what can be done to help eliminate buyers' fears? Or
it's very similar to the vein of what Lynn and James have said. I mean, I would even not be afraid to ask the question: what are you scared of the most? What is your biggest fear with moving a house? Very much removing software.
Being my neighbour, I think, would be top.
Yeah, absolutely. Number one on the list, absolutely. Because we ask the same of estate agents considering coming on with the software, and the one of the biggest ones at the moment is the actual move move from one software to another, which again, something in the pipeline that we are working on. Watch this space, but it's not being afraid to ask. I think that there's a fear from the actual estate agent in some cases where I don't want to ask that because what if they say that it's something we can't do? Well, if it is, at least you know there and then. If it's something you can work on and something you think, do you know what, we can't do it currently, but I reckon we could. So let's bloody well give it a go. That's taking again what Lynn and James have said, incorporating that as well to what they've said about sales progression and everything else. It really does add that value, and it's honesty. Be honest. Yeah. Be completely open and transparent with everything. Lynn said it as well. If something happens in the chain, communicate straight away to everyone involved.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And as you're saying that, let's ask James and Lynn that. It is fair to say, isn't it? If you take it at the analogy of the home move and you transfer that to moving CRM system, in the same way that and I think at one stage, actually, it was about people change CRM every 6 or 7 years. I know it's getting more often now. But because of that, you can have no real experience, can you, of moving CRM? So it's always a big step into the dark with that. Herein lies the problem, though, doesn't it? Because people know it's an important decision. They know it's probably the most important part of tech they can invest in. That decision gets kicked into the long grass. Now, ironically, that's the very worst thing you can do, isn't it? Because all of those benefits that you get a system out of, like Resi with the exciting stuff, there's a real opportunity cost for every month that you haven't made that move. And I suppose our challenge, and I don't think I ever delivered on this previously, is to really get across to them, what those benefits are. Without saying the magical words, you need one more listing to pay for this.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head again. We know that there are a lot of larger firms who are in a position where they want to move, but they are absolutely petrified at the thought of going through that process. Yeah.
If only there was a company that advised on CRM moves. And
I know. Goodness me! If you think of any side, let me know, please.
I will do.
But that's a gap we want to plug. I've already touched on the fact that we're working on something very exciting that's going to help with that. To be continued, obviously. But
next panel.
Yeah, next panel. So, but it's addressing those fears and really it goes right back to the beginning of our discussion in terms of understanding your customer.
Yeah, it does. So Lynn and James, just on that question there, would that be fair to say? Did the idea of changing CRM originally fill you full of fear, or what was your thought?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there is an element of fear with that, but I think as a business director, owner, you have to make the right decision for the business and the customer, and if it means that you're taking an element of risk with that, then you have to do that as long as you're getting the end product that you want, and especially if you're working with a CRM system that you know is not giving you what you need in the market as it's modernising and changing and evolving. I've done that a few times. Every time it's never been simple. There's been challenges with it, but each time we've got to cross the bridge and manage to sort out the challenges and got to the other side. So from my experience, I would say don't let that fear hold you back, because if you let that fear hold you back, you'll never move forward.
No, it's a calculated risk, as you said before. It's not as if you can't do things that minimise. And again, it's not like the business stops, is it? You have a slight awkwardness factor as you're using new things, changing. Yes, sometimes it takes a while to tweak it, but you're literally up and working again. At full pelt within a matter of weeks when these things are done well, aren't you?
Exactly.
It's often over. It's important not to underestimate what you need to do and get the preparation right, but don't go to the other end of the scale, because that will genuinely hold you back more than before. Yeah. James, what about yourself? Do you love the idea of changing CRM?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing for me was I was a client of Core Systems, and Jeff ran Core. We were able to ring Jeff up and speak to him, or go down to his offices every now and again and engage with the people who work there and meet them. And the thing I like about Resi, it's just the same as that. It's not a faceless organisation, or Dezrez, sorry. It's not a faceless organisation. We get to know the people who are there. They can sort out any issues, which actually we don't have. And I think I was one of the early adopters of Resi, Richard, right back 4.5-5 years ago, when it was still evolving. It's still evolving now. It's been great to see the progress. And I've always tried to be an early adopter of stuff. And I'd never worked with Dezrez before, but to be honest with you, I wouldn't work with anybody else now. So
what a great plug again.
No, but it's great, and I think that's probably the most important thing. Some of these businesses, they scale up, but they lose that personal touch, and it's very similar to agency, really, in that respect.
Yeah, that's a really good point, isn't it? As again, Dezrez being one of the last independent companies have got that it's not about being fake friendly, is it? But having knowing that you can pick up the phone to people, know that this is a business that is struggling to deliver for you, means a lot to a lot of people, doesn't it? I think it's an important one. Can we just finish up then? Thanks for that, James, and then on that. What's coming next, do you believe, for the industry that will add significant value, whether it's innovation or a new way of working? I mean, we've touched on obviously the next big thing. Anything else we're missing out on?
Oh, you're asking me? No, I think it's coming at us from the sideways angle. I think the meteor's coming out of the stars, and we've not yet spotted it. I really do, and I think that meteor's got conveyancing written all over it. Like estate agency, innovation has been great this last few years. I think it's quite limited. I'll let Richard tell me I'm wrong when he reveals his big reveal that he can't tell us anything at all about today. But I think the conveyancing sector is probably the next big revolution in property. Personally,
Name yourself.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to call with how fast things are changing at the moment. I think new way of working's happened anyway and continues to happen and evolve. You've got to be there for your customer when they need you. And I think most agents that are modernising and are aware of that. The conveyancing process, as James has said, is there's lots of new things coming to the forefront. I saw your last webinar. That was really interesting to see. But I think things will evolve and change, and I can't project what that might be. The only thing I think we will see definitely is hopefully a more cohesive system within a state agency that can adapt and evolve and change and integrate different apps as we've discussed. So it's kind of under one roof instead of in different pies.
And I think as long as you keep that ethos you were talking about there, is it going to improve the client experience? You're not going to go too far wrong, are you, in terms of that? And the good thing is, James and Lynn, that we've got this now recorded for posterity, so we'll play these predictions back to you. I'll make a prediction one way or the other, and then just claim I've got it right either way. Rich, let's give you it's your webinar. I'm going to do the thank yous in a minute, but what's your view? I bet you've been quite like your MD, Mr. Price. I bet you've been pleased to hear the feedback from two of the most forward-thinking agents
it's fantastic. I mean, to get such positive feedback is really, really good. I agree with both in terms of what's coming next. I think there's going to be, there's definitely a conveyancing element of how that's incorporated in the process. I've got another view on it as well. I think the amount of blockers that are out there that for some reason the government keep putting in play for the industry that almost restrict and hold back, I think there will be a change with that in the coming 12 months because of stamp duty ending. That's just my personal opinion, but I think it will happen. But for me talk that we've had today, I think it just shows how passionate the industry is about the things that really, really matter.
Yeah.
And that's providing the best possible service and value to your customers.
It's not hard to see why agents like Lynn and James I don't want to say sit back on their laurels, but it's not hard to see why they are never going to have to worry about meeting the demands of their own client base, is it? Because if you were sat across the table for them, these are the people you want to be doing business with. Success
breeds success. It does. I'll go back to something. Another thing that Pete and I actually said to me. You ask a person how lucky they are on a scale of 1 to 10, and if they say 8 as a minimum, then that just means they work really, really hard.
Yep.
Because you make your own luck. And success breeds success. I've said it already.
You haven't seen me at the Grand National. I can prove that's absolutely nonsense. But Rich, thank you very much for that. Obviously, you keep us up to tabs with these exciting unveilings. Everybody out there in web world, I've just put in I hope it is anyway. I've just put the Calendly link here to book in directly with the Dezrez team. Have a look at Resi. Tools like any time here. You've heard what James and Lynn have had to say. It's definitely got to be worth a look for anybody thinking about this element over the next few months. But for today, Lynn and James, thank you very much for taking the time, updating us, sharing your experience.
Thanks very much.
It's been brilliant hearing from you, and hope to catch up with you all soon. Again, at a networking day, James.
Absolutely.
Yes, well, you're only 25 minutes away, Simon, and my golf course is about 7,000 yards if you fancy it.
Don't say that like a threat, James. 24.8 miles away. Thank you all. Thank you out there in Webworld. Thanks for your comments. Catch up with you soon. Lynn, James, Rich, have a good day.
Cheers, Si. Thanks, James.
Thank you. Bye.